All right, Texas. Congratulations. You just got a new special assistant head coach to Steve Sarkisian, the former TCU coach, Gary Patterson. Patterson will act as an analyst. He won't interact with players or be on the field. Normally, analysts make about 25 grand a year. But of course, being Texas, they're going to pay him 150 grand annually. Now it appears Sark's on board with this, saying Gary is going to offer the advice and what he thinks we can or should do. Whether it's personnel, whether it's scheme, whether it's game plan. Sark goes on to say, Gary's a great sounding board for all of us. He provides a wealth of experience and knowledge. So Sark is fully on board with Gary Patterson coming in. And hell, that might be the case. I just found it very interesting that when right before this was announced, Gary Patterson happened to be up in the basketball luxury box with old AD Chris Del Conte. Now, these two have previously worked together at TCU, where Del Conte came from. In my opinion, Del Conte has brought Patterson in as basically an insurance policy. Why would he need an insurance policy? Let's take a look. Del Conte's run over the last 18 months has not been real great. He decided that Tom Herman, who was 7-3 his last season, needed to be replaced, which is fine. But if you're going to go through the exercise of replacing him, then you better have a good replacement lined up because it was a costly exercise to get rid of Herman. Essentially, they had to pay him out 24 million. That went to him and his coaching staff. And then you had to find a new coach. So they went with Sark, who they paid 34.2 million to, as well as Sark's assistants, which was another 21 million. So overall, they paid 79 million to bring in Sark and to get rid of Herman. And the question is, what did Texas football get for that?
All right, Stan. You're in for roughly $60 odd. And, what happened?
She slept with Jacobson.
5-7, which included a 6-game losing streak and losing to Kansas by 57 points. Now, Sark believers will point to him that he's changing the culture, and these were necessary growing pains. And like on my last video, we played the clip of Bo Davis losing his mind after yet another loss. The thing is, if you look at Sark's overall coaching record throughout his career, it just is not very impressive. He spent 5 seasons in Washington, and his best year was his last season in 2013, where he went 8-4. He then got the USC job, and his first season 9-4, and then he flamed out spectacularly in the second season in 2015, where he was 3-2, but was dismissed because of with issues related to drinking. There was an embarrassing incident where he was intoxicated at the salute to Troy and used profanity, and they came out later and said it was because he was on pain medication, and then he was reportedly smelt of alcohol during one of the team practices. And by all accounts, he's cleaned himself up and he's rebounded at Alabama and had success as the Alabama offensive coordinator. But who the hell doesn't have success at Alabama as the offensive coordinator? I still don't see what is in this guy's record that says, man, we need to fire a 7-3 coach and pay a hell of a lot of money to get Sark and his team in there. So overall, it's just a bad hire. Texas fans might argue with this, but I think hand on heart, if you had a choice between Sark versus Brian Kelly, you would take Brian Kelly any day of the week. He's just consistently won and has a long track record of winning. Now he's gone to your rival, or one of your soon-to-be rival, LSU. You could make the point and say, well, Brian Kelly wasn't available when Texas got rid of Herman. Well, that is the point. Don't buy out your coach unless you have a better replacement. Now, this is where I give Del Conte credit. Instead of making a mess of this, like further compounding his screw up, what he's done is he's just bought himself a little insurance policy. I'll say Gary Patterson's at Texas on retainer, and they're paying him 150 grand, and it's an insurance policy to see how Sark goes next year. If Texas goes great, well, then it was a stroke of genius. Sark was wonderful for bringing in Gary Patterson. He has that Saban touch and not afraid of bringing in top level assistants, and that's why they won. But if Texas gets their ass kicked by Alabama, well, then they have an option to go to and say, all right, we'll go to Gary Patterson and try to change the culture and get things right. As clearly Sark is not a championship type winning coach. I can see it already. Sark was too West Coast. He tried to get Southern through going to Alabama, but we need a Texas guy. Gary Patterson understands Texas and Texas recruiting. He had success at TCU, blah, 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 blah. And to be honest, that's a better strategy. That's a hell of a lot better than what Auburn's done, where they've just come out and killed Brian Harsons. I mean, he's dead man walking. They've come out and said, "Yeah, we're in support of him." He is done. There's no way he can recover from the stink they've made. Sark has a chance going into season 2 to make something of it. As well, Sark's played along with this. I mean, he's been supportive of the Gary Patterson hiring, so there's been no sniping or anything like that. The other thing that Sark seems to understand is the key to remaining in power when you're not, when your team's not going well, is to sell the fans hope. And hell, he's done that. So with getting Quinn Ewers, that is hope to Texas fans that, the days of VY and Colton McCoy are coming back. And then on top of that, it's Texas. Right now, it appears it's going to be Texas and Alabama in the running for Arch Manning. And even better on that, which I love, is it looks like Sark is looking at bringing David Cutcliffe in to be the analyst for the offensive side of the ball, which is a fantastic move because obviously Cutcliffe is tight with the Mannings as he was Peyton's offensive coordinator at Tennessee and then was Eli's coach at Ole Miss. I mean, and he'll be reporting back to those guys regarding what Texas is and things like that. So, I mean, effectively, Texas is bringing in a double agent. They know Cutcliffe's going to report back to the Mannings on what Texas is like, which is a brilliant move by Sark. If Sark gets fired and it turns into a shit show, that's going to get back to the Mannings, and the Mannings are like, screw that, we'll go to Alabama. We don't want to come to Texas. But if Sark remains happy and it looks like a program on the rebuild, and he gives positive vibes, then, who knows? Texas might be able to land Arch Manning, which would be incredible. It's almost like a replay of, the old Applewhite, Chris Sims days is all full circle. So anyway, it's going to be fun next year. I'm curious to see. Either way, there's no way to prove this right. I guess the only way, the internet's forever. So next year, if Sark and Texas gets their head caved in by Alabama, and my God, if they lose to Kansas again, then Sark is definitely gone, and we'll see if he is indeed replaced by Gary Patterson. But if Sark has success or at least improvement to show that they're on the rebuild, that, they're starting to dominate up front with their offensive line and things like that. Well, hell, if that happens, and you land Arch Manning, well, then in my face, it was just a brilliant move by Sark to bring in, Gary Patterson and just to bring in a top level coaching staff, and he learned from the master Nick Saban, and he's doing everything right, and Texas is on the rebuild, and it's all going to be a fantastic thing. So they really just need to get playing next year and see what happens. Anyway, I'd love your comments on this, especially your poison. Really enjoy your poison. Just no profanity, please. leave comments below. Do you think Gary Patterson will be the next Texas coach? Or do you think Sark is going to see out his contract? Thanks again for watching this. Please like and subscribe to my channel. More content to come. Thank you.